DG, you're White Knight. DG, you're Scammerino. You're a troll, DG. No. I'm just me. More after these messages. Today's video has been brought to you by the generous patrons of The Games who make continued content on The Games possible. The Games patrons enjoy monthly giveaways like Steam gift cards, Star Citizen packages, and any game that you want giveaways. Please consider donating just $1 if in any way you enjoy The Games content. Thank you.
Hit it hard, hit it high, hit it low. Hit it deep, hit it straight, hit it slow. Everywhere they know my name for show. Here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go.
Hello, welcome back to The Games. Not only are we going to talk about my journey in Star Citizen and where I stand in regards to the project, but we're going to talk about some of the topics from the last video that we had done entitled, Is This the End for Star Citizen? Yes, clickbaity title, but lots of content inside. That's my style. Look at this guy. He's so handsome. But first off, I was thinking about putting all these comments, throughout the years of people calling me a White Knight and a Scammerino and a troll, all these different things. Like, I've been so many different things to so many different people. I think this one is the winner. Thank you, Dust, for clearly defining and labeling me and putting me in a category that I think is justifiably the most perfect description I've ever seen of myself. Dust says, I sometimes think you are a Black Knight. Verdict is still out.
None shall pass.
What?
But I just thought that was the greatest fucking comment of all time.
You make me sad.
So let's talk about my journey. When I first started Star Citizen, man, I mean, I was just enamored with it. The dream, the possibilities. I made this particular video we're watching right now, and it was about like all the different careers. This is before we even knew about what was going to be in the game. We were just theory crafting our asses off, and we loved it because there were so many things that this game could be. Right? Back in those days, this game could have been anything we wanted it to be. There weren't any constraints, any restrictions. It was just like balls to the wall and let's make it everything. And that was the greatest time because we had so much fun talking about like putting survival mechanics in the game. That was huge debate, huge discussion. We talked about the pay to win, and we'll get into that actually in this video because we're going to talk about exclusivity on ships. I mean, these types of things where we're talking about exploration and these warp tunnels that we're not even sure is in the game anymore. Landing on planets, which now we can do. This was like old footage of a Merlin landing on a planet that was just kind of like made by a fan. And now we're actually doing it, which I'm going to talk about as well on this journey. But this was all stuff that was like super positive. And yes, my coverage was a little positive back then. It was a little too positive, but then it took a turn for the worse. Now, I loved planetary landing, and I thought that was a huge thing, and I loved it. Now, I still do, like just that uninterrupted flying down and flying back up onto a planet or a moon, and it's absolutely wonderful. And I still remember the feeling of it. I mean, I really do. It was very like, wow, it was a wow moment for me. But then I got upset because I was getting 14 frames per second. And OCS, this is pre-OCS, object container streaming for those that aren't in the know. And it's a technology that they adopted and they brought into the game. It really helped the performance. But before that had happened, the performance was shit for a very long time. And I was voicing out against it. In my mind, I wasn't being negative. I was just trying to get the message out there that this is a problem and that SIG needs to do something about it. So around the 2016, 2017 era of the game Star Citizen coverage, yeah, I was a bit negative, maybe a little bit too negative, but I felt like it was necessary. So I wanted to dig deeper, and Bucha from Suncoast Galaxy was really a perfect interview. I had a great time with him. He was a private investor. He gave me an eye-opener as far as the experience of being a private investor with the project at a very early time of the project. And it was something that was interesting for me to like get the perception of what it was like to be somebody who put money, their own money, a substantial amount into the game, and really not have a good experience with the game because of over promising and under delivering, which is, a track record of Chris. That's just a fact. We all have to like realize that he's had some failures in his life. Doesn't mean that he's always going to have failures in his life. And that's one thing that I think, the people who are arguing that this is just a scam, need to kind of like open up just a touch. I think Chris really wants the game to be a game. I don't think this is just a pyramid or a Ponzi scheme. Obviously he needed the money. Like what I got from Booch's interview is that he was in a bad spot financially, and he came back out balling like a developing rock star. Like, you know, he was like a developer again. Yes, he had the Hollywood bugs still. Yes, he brought in lots of famous actors for Squadron 42, and we're going to talk about that after I talk about this journey here, because these are some of the cons that I have against the game, is that I think that Chris is mismanaging the company fiscally, but we're going to get into that. Do I think that the project's going to be like a large heaping dump of shit? No, I think there is hope, and I think like we just need to talk about it rationally. But let's continue the journey here of where I am today. So then I needed to research a little bit more. So we really got into the numbers of it. You know, like we know that SIG is not a public company. We know that they're not obligated to give us their actual financials, but they did. Do we think that those financials are the truest statement of what SIG is making and spending? No. We can track a lot of the funding through this particular screen. I do it like every single month. And we know what their burn rate is approximately. We went through all these numbers. These are older numbers though, and not newer numbers. However, I will talk about this after the journey because the numbers are really important, and I think that everybody needs to be made aware of the fact that, you know, they're having a little issues, and we'll get into it. Okay, so let's keep the journey going. So I was reporting on this, and the whole time I'm reporting on these things, I was called a troll. I was very negative, you know, and the thing is that I find funny is I did it in a way that was probably the most factual way possible, in the most very unbiased way that I could, and I was still being called a troll because it's very polarizing. The community is super polarizing. You know, it's either like, oh, we hate it, or woo, fuck everybody that hates it. And there has to be like there has to be a meeting in the middle. There has to be like, you know, a mesh of sorts where we can have all of those thoughts, right? And not necessarily be pushed to those extremes, and start being a little bit more rational. So at this particular time, I was a little bit more negative. I was doing a lot more research. And then OCS arrives, client side. My performance shoots from like a shitty 12 to 14 frames per second to nearly like a 45 to 50 frames per second. And things get much better for me. The experience of it gets much better. And I start this series called Experience Star Citizen. And I start to enjoy the game much more. I start to notice that I'm not sticking all the time, and there's no graphical issues like there used to be for me. Things are performing the way that I want them to. FOIP comes out. I'm having a great time with the FOIP technology, with the face over internet protocol technology, and I'm just having a goddamn blast with the game. And some people would say, but DG, there's really no content in the game. And my counter argument to that is that we are the content. You know, like look at Daymar Rally. Look at that. People got together, they created the content. There's other people out there who do the same thing. Rexzilla has these great ops, you know, like, and he's getting a lot of views from the ops that he does. And it's just you can create your content and have fun in the game. Should there be more content in the game? Hell yes, we're screaming for it. We want it. Which brings us to present day. I am positive. I am slightly skeptical. I am rational. I have all these things, guys. It is okay to have all these thoughts. This does not make you like somebody who's a flip-flopper or somebody who's waffling. This is just the journey. This is the evolution of being a human being. Somebody that's actually taking all the data in, still enjoys the project, still wants it to become a reality, but at the same time doing due diligence to figure out if in fact, you know, it's going to be created. And that is what is the most important thing for me. I hope you guys got a little history of me and know who I am, and know that like I want this to happen. Obviously want this to happen. But I'm also going to make sure that I'm going to do the due diligence that is needed to make sure that this project gets, you know, through, and that our voices are heard as to the best of my ability. And I think it's important that we all have these discussions together, that we all try together collectively to push messages out there that are constructive and positive, even in terms of the scope of, you know, where we're going, and if it's not a great place to be going. You know, like, we look at this. You see, like, this is a video done by Art of Games, which I absolutely love, and it's showing you where we're at currently with the game. So for people that are saying like the game's trash and it isn't where we want it to be, and you know, I don't agree. I respectfully disagree. Look at how beautiful this is. Like, look how far that we have come. In the 4 years I've been involved with this project, I definitely see progress being made. Is it slow? Yes. Is it there? Yes. So, you know, take some of the things that you're hearing with a grain of salt. Take your time to really research what is happening with the project. And I will do my best to always report the news to you. Always report like the important things that are happening within the company. I think it's important these discussions are had so that we can continue forward with this project and get it out and get it released to everybody. Just watching this though is like fascinating to me. I'm like, wow, I see the progress. I just don't see how people don't see the progress, but I'm not going to deny them their viewpoint. That's their viewpoint. That's not my viewpoint. I am definitely pro the project, and I am definitely against what Chris is doing right now. And you know, you can have that opinion, and that's completely fine. Don't feel ashamed to feel that way if you're one of those that feel that way. And I'll explain to you why I think so. I think Chris is being irresponsible fiscally right now, in the financial field, which we know he has done in the past, because I think he's just expanding way too fast. I think there's too much expenses. I've done videos in the past where we've had, again, these are all approximations. They're in the ballpark though. And I believe that they are expending way too much versus what they're bringing in. The only thing I got out of that Forbes article was cumulatively, Chris is paying out $30 million to employees over the 537 employees, which isn't much if you average it out. I think it's like 56,000, somewhere thereabouts. I don't know, in the ballpark again. But, you know, obviously not everybody's making 56,000. Some people are making more than 100,000, 200,000. Some people are getting paid like 25,000, like the janitors. We talked about this already. We already talked about this on the channel, but we know that now that there's a 30 million check needed to be written out, which is about $2.5 million a month. We know revenue wise, when it comes to pledges, that they're basically bringing in about 2 to 2.5 million on a good month. So, unless there's new ship sales, and then they have like little spikes, which is great. But generally speaking, I am of the opinion, and again, this is my opinion, and I'm entitled to it as it is my opinion and the research that I've done, that they are spending more than they're making. This is not sustainable. And this is why I say that Chris is mismanaging the company right now. They need a strong CFO to come in and tell Chris, hey, we got to stop this. Either we got to cut back and we got to rein it in, or we got to find a way to bring in more revenue. And so that brings us to the next topic that we had in the video, which was exclusivity. Now, a lot of you said, that's a terrible idea, DG, and I understand why. And I actually do agree with your point, is that, you know, exclusivity brings about a very dangerous pay to win precedent. And while I agree with that, I also want this project to be completed. So I'm trying to think of different ways in which they can bring in extra revenue. Yes, subscriptions, but we know from based upon our research and prior videos that subscription money is not a lot of money that they're bringing in through subscriptions. But other than subscription and other than ship sales, which I think are presented incorrectly, like I want to show you guys something, and I think this is a misconception with a lot of people. Let's get into this here. So we're at the pledge store right now, and this is the Roberts website for Star Citizen, which is a little confusing. Again, they should probably streamline this still. And what you'll notice is they have up in this top right corner pledge store. You go to the pledge store, you know, you buy your packages to get into the game. Some of these aren't in the game yet. That's a big discussion that we can have. We've had it before here on the channel. But if you notice, like, it's pledging. Most people know that it's pledging, but there's this here which says view buying options, and I think a lot of the times, and now you go view buying options and you put it in the cart and then it says pledge again. So, but I think one of the things we need to think about is that we all view ships as ship sales, right? So we all feel like we're purchasing, we all feel like we're buying it. So that brings about the exclusivity debate. You know, if we're buying it, shouldn't it be, you know, an exclusive thing? But I understand that if we did this, then we'd have to worry about like kind of an elite tranche of citizen that has exclusive rights to a particular ship. Could there be other ships that are parallel in actual loadouts and firepower, or, you know, vice versa, industrial ships carrying cargo loads, stuff of that nature? Yes, there could be. There could be other ships in the game for basically the in-game creds that you could buy that would parallel the exclusive ships. So the only differences would be like the design and the look of the ship. But I get it. I get that argument and I understand it. But I'm just trying to find ways in which revenue can be secured to support the current 537 employees that are within SIG at the $30 million a year that he's spending. And thus we come to an end. I am absolutely exhausted. If you got through this video, congratulations. You're a hardcore Star Citizen fan, or you're a hardcore The Games fan. Either way, I love you. Thanks so much. These are really great talking points. Tell me what you think down below. I can't wait to see the comments, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I really do. And I hope it made it a little bit more clear as to where I stand on the project, and also, you know, where I think we're going forward. I think there's a little bit of some danger here. We definitely need to watch the spending. We definitely need to make sure we're securing revenue streams. And I think as long as we're vocal and we're constructive, I think we'll see this project get to where we need it to. Short term, I'm not worried. Long term, I'm a little bit worried if it keeps on going this way, but I will continue to be vigilant. I will continue to voice my opinions as I always do. And thank you for joining me. I will see you on the next vid.